Let's go ahead and get started. Just a reminder, we're going to be recording this meeting, so folks who aren't able to attend can view it later. And any of the information that we share will also be available to folks then. And we have lots of information today because this is our first meeting of the semester. Happy spring, everybody. I know that I'm noticing the days getting a little longer, and I'm really looking forward to having some more daylight in the evenings and being able to spend some more time outside in my garden or lack thereof, and maybe I can make it a garden with a little more daylight hours. But we have a lot of information to share with you all today. We have some very special guests. And so without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Sawyer for some brief opening remarks and to introduce our first VIP guest. Dr. Sawyer, go ahead and take it away.
Great. Thank you so much, Laura. And welcome to our semester. I know our students have been here now going on a couple of weeks, but we're so happy just to see you, to see your faces, and just to know that, and I want you to know this too, our culture of care is still all intact. We want to make sure that you all are touching base and getting what you need from each other and from all of us. We also want to make sure too that you know that there are also resources out there should you need them with our EAP, but we also have each other. And I do want to make sure that we continue to touch base. We'll be having our next fireside chat. And our next fireside chat will be coming up here in the next week or so. And it's going to be around the topic of Black history. And it'll be kind of fun for us to learn a little bit about each other and more about the historical concepts and things that happened over the period since African-American people have been on this continent. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We've asked Mendel to work with us. As you know, Mendel also too did lead for us on the African-American History Month and did a phenomenal job. And so shout out to Mendel and the crew that did such a phenomenal job. That was absolutely amazing. One other thing that I'd also like to mention, I know that we all know this, and it'll be probably the last time we mention it, at least maybe this month, and that is, I again want to congratulate Dr. Gerald Jones for being our Wong Award winner. Your remarks, Dr. Jones, were absolutely incredible. The tribute you paid to your mother was absolutely spot on. And just want to say publicly in front of our group how proud we are that you not only are from the Division of Student Affairs, but more importantly, you're from Sonoma State and you represent us well. So thank you. And at this time, one of the things that, of course, we're always so proud of is that our very own president, President Judy Sakaki, is also a student affairs person. Her principles, her values, all rest in the work that we do. And it's wonderful to be able to have a president and a colleague that also has those same notions and the visions that we have and the purpose for the work that we do. So I always enjoy introducing Judy to the group. And one other thing I will say too is how important it has been that Judy's been showing up, and she continues to show up for our students, be it in the written form, where you'll see very clearly when she's writing a statement to the campus, you will always see the Judy Sakaki student-centered and student-focused touch. And those are the things that I know that we all look forward to. Many of us have heard, hey, we want to see President Sakaki. And I know that you all have said the same thing. So today we actually have Judy with us, and so excited to have and to hear all that she has to say in terms of what's going on in the state of California, the CSU and SSU. So President Sakaki, welcome.
All right, well, good morning. It is really good to see all of you. It feels like forever, as young people say. It feels like forever since we've been in the ballroom and since I could greet you there in person. So much continues to happen, and a lot of it you make happen. So I really want to take this time to really acknowledge that and say thank you. Thank you for what you do every single day. Thank you for how you show up, not just here today in the Student Affairs Division meeting, but how you show up for our students and our campus every day that you're working. I really appreciate that. Um, each and every one of you matters and makes a difference. And I love just seeing your faces in the screen. It's a new way. Who would have thought back almost a year ago now in March that we would be interacting this way? No one in our, I don't know if you were into some science fiction or something, but we would have never imagined that our work and life would be like it is now. And yet, you know, as role models, we have all adapted because we had no choice. But in the midst of all that, I think it's really important to still take care of yourself and take care of each other. So I want to start, you know, I want to echo what Doc Sawyer said about Gerald. We're all really proud, and that was a great moment at the Board of Trustees meeting. And many of the Board of Trustees said, hey, how did you get 2 in a row? You know, there's 23 campuses, there's 1 staff administrative award, and Laura Lupe won it the year previous and Gerald this year. And they said, what are you, starting a dynasty or something? And I said, hey, you know, can't help it if we got great people. So anyway, thanks to all of you, because none of us wins these awards or these recognitions on our own. It's a team. It's one person oftentimes, or a team of people that gets recognition, but even a team can't do it alone. It really takes all of us lifting each other. And if we weren't doing that together and in sync, no one would get any recognition. And that's something that's critical. And oftentimes I think in student affairs, we don't get the recognition. We'd like to say that our students will stop and thank us after you've done something really phenomenal that have changed their lives or saved them. But so often they're so busy going on with their lives that they forget to stop and turn around and say, hey, you know, you really made a difference to me. And so I hope that you will be that for each other, because sometimes our students won't realize it until they're alums or maybe even after. And if we can model that for each other, when you see a colleague doing something that you think was really phenomenal, reach out to them and say, hey, I noticed that was something special. Whether you sat in on a workshop they did or a presentation, you know, just a quick email or a shout out to just say, hey, you were really on today. That really was a great presentation. I think we need to really show that as part of being a caring community, not just care for our students, but care for each other. I was reading about, you know, thinking about what's going on in the chancellor's office. And, you know, things continue to change there. We have a new chancellor, Joseph Castro, incidentally, who came out of student affairs. He was a colleague of mine at, when I was at the UC, he was at UCSF. He worked a little bit at Fresno State and in the Valley, even before he became president there. But his heart was in student affairs. And now he appointed an interim executive vice chancellor for academic and student affairs, who also was a former colleague of mine, also cut his teeth in student affairs. And so I think what you're seeing is, and if you look at how many presidents now have student affairs background, it really says to the kind of training and experience that each of you have and are developing even more. That student affairs, I maintain, you're really at the forefront of learning about the entire university and managing during crisis with students and with our campus. And that those skills really help you not just in your own personal life, but they help you in other positions. And I think that's really being recognized at the system level. So we've got more people coming in with student affairs background, which is quite exciting. I don't think there's never been, and Greg has served a long time in the CSU, and there's never been a chancellor and an executive vice chancellor that came out of student affairs before. So that's quite a milestone, I think. I was reading, I don't know if you saw this article in a January 22nd issue of the Chronicle of Higher Ed. And I want to mention a couple things about it because it resonated with me. It was called, the article was called #TeamNoSleep. And the byline under that was, the pandemic has pulled even the Division of Student Affairs workers into a crisis, that you're crisis oriented, but no one imagined this crisis would be, they said 10 months, but now it's 11 months, it's almost a year. And no one has really expected that we would be in this work all this time in this way, addressing students. And so your own exhaustion, your own, what has been, called Zoom fatigue, is real. And so now there are things that people are saying, even for presidents, we're on with Zooming with, we have all-day retreats, which I still maintain are too long. It is hard to do an 8-hour retreat, but we have another one coming up, the Board of Trustees meeting, the Board of Trustees retreat. And so one of the tips that someone in business gave to the presidents, and I'll share it with you, is when you are on long Zoom meetings, not to stay in the gallery mode where you are seeing everyone, as many people as you can possibly see on the screen, but go to speaker mode. And we all said, why? And they said, because, your brain just keeps looking at each of those different screens and seeing different people, and it's causing you to be even more exhausted because you're trying to zoom in on what do we have now? We have over 20, 25 people on the screen. And then I go, because I want to see all your faces, I keep switching screens, and we have 4 different pages of people. And so that was a tip that they gave us when we're in long meetings, to go from the gallery view to the speaker view, so you're focused on, as you would probably if you were listening to a speaker in person, you would be focused on that person, not turning around looking at the audience and looking at every single person. But it's things like that, just to think, just as you tell students to think about self-care, you really need to think about self-care for yourself. Trying to get more sleep. And I'm really good at like saying these are things we should do, and I'm probably not as good at doing it myself. But really, I think I listened to a TED Talk that was about the impact on your body when you don't sleep very much, and how even cramming for exams is not a good thing long-term for your body and your brain. And so as I listened to that, I thought, sleeping 5 hours a night is not a good long-term plan. It's really, I was convinced after listening to this medical person say what it does to your body. And so just thinking about that, then if we could by increments change some of our behavior to be healthier, to eat healthier, those things all really matter. So care for yourself, care for each other, to think about a time instead of, we are so stuck to our phones, right? Our devices. And probably sleep with it right next to your bed if you're like me, and look at it before you go to sleep, and shut your eyes and look at it the first thing before when you wake up. And I guess the question is, if you and your colleagues can say, okay, if it's something that's truly urgent, then we will text each other. And that's one of the things we've said on cabinet. If it's on the weekends and it's after 6, let's try to text each other if we really expect each other to see it, because we don't want to be quite tied as tightly to our devices and checking emails every second. And so in your divisions with the people that this is something you'll need to think about, but we need to do some self-care and care for each other in our community. What we do, you will find your own rewards and joy. It can be a small thing. It can be a student saying thank you, or a student graduating, that makes us feel like, hey, this was all worth it. But remember those moments, so that when you are just exhausted and you think, oh, I don't know if I have to deal with another student today, I just don't know. And I remember when I was an academic advisor and counselor, and someone suggested to me that I had a kudos box. And this was a physical, like, gift box that I had cut a slot in the top. And when people wrote to me or gave me a card or something, I would put it in that box. And so whenever I had a tough day, I could just reach in that box, pull something out and read it and remember, oh yeah, this was really a neat thing. Some people do it, and you can do it now on your desktop. You can just keep a little folder. If someone writes to you and says something very nice, or Gerald, you've got all these, now you've got this most recent, all the great things that the chancellor said about you. All you have to do when you have a tough day, Gerald, is just listen to that video again, and that will be your, like, your, what I call your kudos box for a tough day. But think about what you can do for each other, and it may be sending notes to each other that they can add to their kudos box for those tough days, because we all have them. And to pay attention, it's harder on Zoom, but you know your colleagues, and you could tell by their body language, or you can tell by their expression that something is not quite right. And instead of just noticing it and saying, oh my gosh, they must be having a really tough day, if you could reach out to them, if it's a private chat, a direct message on chat. We do this with the presidents. You know, I will look at a president, I'll say either that person is sick or something terrible has happened, but they are not smiling, they are not engaging, something is going on. And I will just text them and check in with them to see, just checking in, how are you doing? And I encourage you to do that for each other. Talked about, you know, getting more sleep. It's setting some boundaries for yourself, making sure you have time for the loved ones in your life, to unplug just a little bit so you can have a date night, or a special hours with, I see some little ones, or it can be even some playtime with your dog, taking a long walk, longer than maybe you normally would, which is good for both you and your dog. So I just want to say, I just appreciate everything you're doing. And I want you to take care of yourself, because we're in this for the marathon, not the sprint. You know, this this pandemic has lasted longer than any of us imagined, and it's still going to be different, even if we're all lined up, and even if we can get vaccines. And we're working really hard to have all of you, all the campus employees, irrespective of their position, to be counted as educators, to be able to be vaccinated at the Rancho Cotati site as they receive enough vaccine. But you also have options through your own healthcare provider. But we want to make sure that you are taken care of so that you can continue to care for others. So with that, let's see, I've done Advocacy Week. Last week and this week are CSU Advocacy Week. Part of my job as a president is to contact all of our local legislators and advocate with them about the CSU budget needs, and to update them on things that are going on at Sonoma State. And so those calls have been happening. We've included a student in those calls, one or two, because actually the legislators hear from me all the time, and they are most excited when I introduce a student, and they have their most of their questions for the students. And the students have been great, talking about basic needs. And as I've been advocating for the CSU budget, we've been talking about the importance of the GRAD initiative and basic needs and mental health needs. But it makes a difference. It makes it come alive when a student really talks about it. So those calls have been happening. I have more this week. And normally I'd be in Sacramento walking the halls of the Capitol, but you know, it's not safe. And normally I would be going in March to Washington, D.C. to advocate with congressional leaders. But again, we're doing these all by Zoom. But it's still important. We've been talking about one-time needs and money for infrastructure deferred maintenance so that some of our buildings that are older, the roofs are leaking and we don't have funds to patch those up in the right way or put a new roof in. But we also have been advocating for one-time funds for DACA students because they're not eligible for any of the federal stimulus money or any federal aid. And I don't think that that's fair and right. And we have more empathy, sympathy with our state government leaders. And so we've been advocating for emergency grant funds for DACA students to make them at least eligible to be able to receive support that otherwise they would receive less than a documented student. So I'm going to stop there and just open it up for any questions. I also love advice, and I appreciate when you write to me. I do read them all. Sometimes I'm slow in responding, but believe me, I read them all. And I should get better about answering right when I read it, because I say, I'm going to come back because I want to write a longer response, a more thoughtful response. And then weeks could go by and I'm thinking, it's still on my to-do list, but I haven't quite got there. So thank you. It's with a lot of appreciation and gratitude that I meet with you this morning. So questions, comments?
Any questions that y'all have or thoughts?
Yeah, definitely thoughts. I just want to say it's really good to see everyone this morning as we move into this semester. But I get a good feeling and have a great feeling. And Dr. Sakaki, I just publicly want to say thanks for the genuine and sincere, or should I say ethical leadership. And again, I was thinking to myself and just reflecting back that sometimes we have to be careful what we wish for. If you don't really envision and see what you want to see, it may never happen. And so, to be a part of just a culture of care and knowing, as you described, the people that it takes in this team to make it all works or to create the experiences for our students, I'm just honored and proud to be a part of it. But I just want to take it back to when you were actually mentioning that we had to dance with change. And we had no idea that the type of change that was on the horizon. But again, the leadership, the direction, and the messaging, it really allowed for us as a collective whole to be resilient and to continue. And again, Gerald, congratulations. Jamie coming in with the leadership, LMP. I mean, it's just, I don't want to take too much time, but I'm saying that I would have never, I had to trust and believe that this could happen. I just had to trust and believe that it could happen, because until I saw it for myself, and to see the people that continue to step to the forefront on every front, is just, I walk through with a particular joy. And again, we do have those moments as human beings, our families, but those are just kind of my immediate thoughts, and I just had to share them. So I just appreciate and just want to say thank you to everybody.
Great. Thanks for those comments, Andre. I appreciate you. And I remember that very first meeting that you and I had, even before my first day in my position. And I guess as I stepped onto campus and I realized that I wanted us to be a more student-centered campus, I didn't realize really how heavy the lift might be. But we've been able to do it because we've been able to do it together. And if I look at how many faces are new faces in those 4 years here, and how many of you have also stayed and helped us with these changes, I am so grateful and appreciative. And we have more work to do. But as I say, it's all good because we're moving in the right direction. And we're celebrating each other. We're supporting each other. I mean, this is Black History Month. We have the Lunar New Year coming up. And so I see many of you on here. This is the year of the ox, and it's a significant. And we will celebrate in a safe way together because we care about each other and we care about our families. But there's still a lot to celebrate even in these difficult times, and still a lot to help lift our students. Thanks, Andre. Other questions or comments?
Hi, Dr. Sukaki. This is Noelia Franzen from DSS. And thank you for all your work and inspiration. One area that students need help with, and also I think it would help everybody, is that faculty are very late in identifying the materials that they're going to use for their courses. And that has been, that really impacts the students, especially students with disabilities and other students, in such a big way. If they don't know what they're not going to know what to, how much to spend, how much the class is going to cost overall with the book expenses. But more importantly, for DSS, we need to know what those books are so that we can convert them to their accessible formats. And that can take weeks. Sometimes we have to actually contact the publishers, and they have to, go through their whatever hoops they have, and then send us the digital copies of the books. And then we spend hours, thousands and thousands of pages going through to do our work in converting the materials. Our campus is one of the worst as far as providing just the name of the book, the ISBN, what's going to be used in the semester. The next due date for this is April for the next semester. And like I said, we're one of the worst campuses. I don't know why the faculty are not responding with this.
I hear you, and we can bring that up, Doc Sawyer, when we meet with the Academic Senate, or as we have cabinet meetings, we can talk to Karen about that. Provost Moransky, Interim Provost Moransky. We are starting searches that we will ask some of you to participate in, or there's an election process, I'm not sure exactly, but we have both the permanent provost position, the permanent athletic director position, as well as a faculty athletic representative position. So we have a number of, the faculty athletic rep, some of you may not know, for faculty, if you know of any that might be former student athletes, that position does report to me. So with that, I'm looking at the time, and I think I was supposed to be in a 10:30 meeting. So I probably need to sign off, but don't hesitate. And I appreciate those thoughts, Noelia and Andre. And if others, don't hesitate to reach out and shoot me an email. And thank you so much.
Dr. Sukaki.
Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. And I want to say your comments this morning have been so validating to me, and I'm sure others would agree. So thank you for joining us, and
Take care.
Next meeting. Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Awesome. Yeah, I know that Dr. Sukaki's not here anymore, but I have to say that if you're able to look at the article she mentioned in the Chronicle, it's a very validating article. I know one of the things that I've struggled with throughout this pandemic is explaining to my family why I'm overwhelmed. And, I think many of you probably agree that it's hard to explain what student affairs is as a career to our families. I think I still re-explain what I do for a living to my parents anytime they ask me. And so just trying to convey why not having students on campus has added a new layer to our work and the ways that we have done a lot of heavy lifting and have really worked together. I know that I really appreciated hearing those words this morning. Dr. Sawyer, do you want to add anything before we move into our announcements?
No, let's go ahead and move into announcements.
Okay, we do have the article that was referred to is called they're called #NoSleep. And I will put the link. You do have to sign up for a free account if you haven't already. And there's probably some clever way that we could access the Chronicle through the library. But if you want to access it now, you can sign up for just a free account to read it. And we see our colleagues from Channel Islands in there, and Kevin Kruger from NASPA. So some familiar faces. And oh, and yes, Audra says you can sign up through the library for our tech savvy folks. Okay, so Sue, can we get our Google Slides up so we can move into our announcements? We do have one more guest today. Laura Lupe is going to be joining us at 11 o'clock. We have a couple other folks from across the division who are going to be sharing some announcements. And so we will see what we can get through before 11. And we will either continue after the break or we'll wait to hear from her. So I'm going to start with some of our usual announcements we like to share with folks. You can go ahead and advance, Sue. Thank you. We have a couple surveys that I want to put on everyone's radar this semester. You know, as we move into a culture of assessment and we incorporate some of these ongoing surveys into our academic calendar, I will try to make sure that folks are aware what the planned surveys are. These are 2 campus-wide surveys that will be going out. The National College Health Assessment is set to launch in March. It will go out to all students. It is an online survey. The questions on the NCHA include things around, you know, kind of a wide understanding of what we mean by health, mental health, physical health, eating behaviors, exercise behaviors, substance use, sexual health and behavior. It gives us a good baseline as a university for how our students are doing. I think the last time the university conducted this survey was in 2018. So we will be able to do a little bit to compare how our students looked in 2018 compared to now. But most importantly, I think in this pandemic, it's going to give us the ability to identify some areas maybe that we want to really focus on, whether it's through health education or through offering services. And so more to come on that survey in particular. But if you have any students ask questions about the survey, or if you're having conversations with folks, these are helpful things for you to remind students, you know, this is a place to voice your experiences, to share with us how you're doing. The responses are anonymous, or at the very least confidential. I suppose I'm not totally sure off the top of my head, but in any case, we never use survey data to identify students personally or to target them for particular issues. But if they have experiences that they want us to understand better, filling out the survey is a really important way to do so. In the same vein, we have a plan for a campus climate survey rolling out in April. This is going to go out to students, faculty, and staff. And so we encourage you to participate in the survey. For this survey in particular, again, it's an assessment, it's not a research study. And so the reports will only be used internally to identify some kind of base level, you know, how are we doing as a campus? What are some areas and key areas of concern that we may want to work to address? And so in the same vein that I shared why it's important for students to participate, this is a wonderful opportunity for us to share about our experiences. The students will have a similar but separate survey. And so we will be encouraging students to participate. The other piece around wanting to make sure that you all are hearing about these university surveys here is that I shared in our last research and assessment committee meeting with your representatives from across the division that one of the important aspects of data collection, whether it's qualitative or quantitative, is that we want to make sure that students understand why they're being asked to provide information and how it fits in with a broader kind of efforts to use data to guide our practice. That means that some of you may have ongoing campaigns or data collection efforts that you have coming out of your areas as well. I have asked all of the representatives from the Research and Assessment Committee to go back to their areas and bring back plans for data collection so that we in the Office of the Vice President can help folks navigate maybe competing priorities and make sure that anytime we're rolling these data collection efforts out, that we're not competing with one another for people's time. I see a question, Mitzi.
Yes, hi, I'm Mitzi here. I'm a nurse practitioner from the Student Health Center. We have used data from the NCHA before for QI studies, but my understanding is that before the results were free for us to access. I understand that now there's a fee to be paid. Is that still the case, or do we get access to those results to use them, or do we have to pay that fee?
I would have to ask Tracy if she's able to answer that question. I don't believe that there would be a fee to access the data, but Tracy, is Tracy on?
Yeah, we will get the data.
Okay. Oh, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so like I said, stay tuned for more information and encourage folks to participate. I encourage you to participate and let me know if you have any concerns about competing priorities for assessment projects this semester, so I can help us mitigate any of those concerns. Okay, we can move to our next slide. I think the next couple of slides are things for you to mark your calendars. We will be sending out kind of more formal calendar invitations, and we'll be posting the dates in Engage as well for you to reference. But you heard it here first. Our tentative date for the staff celebration of excellence is Friday, May 28th at 3 p.m. I think in the coming weeks, we will be sending out the information around what the nomination process will look like for the awards. We've talked about this before as a way of recognizing the excellence and the work that you all do in the division. I see that Doc came off mute. Do you want to say something about the celebration of excellence, Dr. Sawyer?
Well, first of all, thank you. I'm very excited about this particular recognition because, as Dr. Polson pointed out, it really is being able to celebrate all of us and being able to say all the good work that you have done. And so the process will be brought out. The nomination process will come out probably in the next couple of weeks. And we look forward to you being able to recognize your fellow team members, folks throughout the division, as well as we have at least one award and recognition that we handed out last year, which is called the Spirit Award. And that simply is recognition of individuals outside the Division of Student Affairs that have exhibited student affairs characteristics and their passion for students. So we hope that you will send us, hopefully we'll get a lot of these. And then this first year, as you will see, we'll have a group that will actually select this year and next year and the years after that, all the recipients of the award. So if you're in a particular category, you actually will be able to read through the nominations if you were selected as a winner, and you will be able to help select the next year's winner and on and on and on. And so we're very excited about that because it really becomes then the excellence creates more excellence. So we're excited about it. So look forward to getting that out to you next couple of weeks.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Sawyer. Equally excited about it as well, and extra excited about the future when we'll be able to be in person and have an in-person event. I think we have, done what we can to recognize folks, but there's nothing like being able to sit around a room and really, celebrate one another. So this event will be virtual, but in the future, I think I'm extra excited for seeing how this celebration of excellence grows. Okay, Sue, we can move to the next slide. We are having more fireside check-ins this semester. Here are the dates and the times. I believe we're still sticking with the Tuesday 4 to 5 time slot. And Rachel Carbone will be sharing the invitations. Dr. Sawyer talked at the beginning a little bit about what our plans are for our next fireside check-in. So please, if you are able to join us, we are happy to have these events kind of continue as a way of having community and bringing folks together to either have a COVID-free zone or just have some community with one another. We can move to the next slide here, the dates for our division meetings for the rest of the semester. We have block 10 to noon. And we will continue to record the division meetings in case folks are not able to attend. And then let's see, I've got some staff announcements for folks. We have a couple new roles we've announced via email, but want to make sure we highlight them here. Ku Yang Vigil is our new interim director for EOP and Puerta. Congratulations, Ku. We also, Rose Calzonci is our new interim TRIO Student Support Services Operations Manager. Congratulations, Rose. We did have an announcement sent out in December that Leah Thompson-Clark retired from the Children's School, but we wanted to recognize her here again. Congratulations to Leah on her retirement. Lucky lady. We have a new Seawolf in our family. Welcome to Isla Marlene Silveria, Diana's baby. The baby was born on January 31st. Congratulations, Diana. A couple employee milestones. Mendel Murray achieved permanent status in January. Congratulations, Mendel. And Dr. Avampado passed her national licensing exam. Congrats, Dr. Courtney. That's so exciting. We all remember all the sticky notes from your studying. So congratulations for passing that exam. And also congratulations on your expected baby joining us in July, another new Seawolf. Okay, let's see. I think we can turn it over to Tracy for Student Health Center update. We have a number of things going on there, so we thought we'd give her the floor to share with you all what's happening in the world of student health.
Thank you, Laura. Hello, everybody. I will try to be brief. I know we're running out of time. We can go to the next slide. Thank you. So I first wanted to touch on the wellness screening. It needs to be completed every day for anyone who's on campus. So for those of you who have not been on campus during this time, so we started doing this in July. It's a screening that everyone does before they come on campus. There's a link on the COVID-19 page, and basically you're saying that you don't have any symptoms consistent with COVID, that you haven't been in contact with anyone, that you haven't tested positive in the last, I believe it asks you the 14 days. So wanting to remind everyone, as you know, we may have more people coming onto campus that have not been on campus recently, that all employees need to fill it out, and also a good reminder for all of our students, if you are connecting with any of them, the students need to complete it as well anytime they come on campus. So residential students need to complete it every single day that they are on campus. And then other students need to complete it when they come onto campus. If there are any issues that you do have symptoms or you have been in contact, it'll let you know, stop and don't come onto campus. And then you will hear from, if it's a student, they'll hear from someone at the Student Health Center. Employees will hear from HR, risk management about that. So any questions or concerns, you can always reach out. I can usually answer them. Dr. Henny has a lot of knowledge about that as well. Next slide, please. So COVID vaccines, everyone's favorite topic. It's getting a little less confusing this week. So we're getting some movement, as you may have seen. I believe there was a Press Democrat article that the SCO site did open up yesterday. So employees at Sonoma State, so this is everybody, not just faculty, can be vaccinated through the SCO site. You can also get vaccinated through your primary care provider. Employees will get notified when it's their turn through the university. And there's a phased approach. So this week it's and it's changing all the time, so I may say it wrong. This week it's childcare workers and those who are currently have face-to-face contact, and then it'll go through with ages, so starting with those that are interacting with the youngest students and then moving up through to higher education finally. Students can be vaccinated at the Student Health Center. We are currently vaccinating students. We started in January. They're being given based on the eligibility that, thank you, Dr. Sorry, yes, Sonoma County Office of Education, we get into our acronyms and forget that not everyone knows what they mean. So we're giving them based on eligibility and supply. So you can go to the county public health website and find out where we are based on eligibility and who is eligible at this time. It's the same, the student eligibility is the same as the employee eligibility. This week, we're currently vaccinating healthcare workers, those age 70 plus, childcare workers, and agricultural workers. If a student would like to get vaccinated through the Student Health Center, they complete a secure message form through their My Health portal. There are directions about this on the Student Health website. If you get questions from students, you can direct them there. They can also always call and ask us questions. If you have questions about particular student groups or any questions at all, feel free to reach out. What we do is they send us that message, and then we go through those and put them onto a list. And then once we're ready for that group, we call them up and see if they still want to schedule. And again, it's eligibility. And then if we actually get a vaccine from the county, we get notified usually once a week. I got a call right before this meeting about our allocation for this week. So it's kind of last minute, generally speaking. Next slide. Like I said, there are frequent changes. We're constantly getting told one thing and the next day it changes. So please bear with all of us and be patient. I know it's really hard. We've been in this for 11 months now, and the vaccine is giving us a lot of hope, and many of us are very eager to get it. It will be your turn, hopefully soon. Bear with everyone from the county, down to your colleagues here, we're working on getting everyone vaccinated as soon as possible. Make sure that you're giving out this information to colleagues, to students, that is correct. It creates a lot more stress and anxiety around the vaccine when someone's told that they can get it or to do this, or someone else is getting it now. And we just want to make sure that everyone's getting the right information. If you're not sure, just reach out to me, shoot me an email. I try to respond as quickly as possible, and I'm happy to talk through the vaccine process with anyone. I think that's it. So I don't think I had any more. Yes, okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tracy. I think because we have 5 minutes before Laura Lupe joins us, I'm going to give us all a 5-minute stretch break, and we will come back at 11 to hear from Laura Lupe. Thanks, everybody. Back. Whether they're on screen or off screen, we can certainly to be respectful of everybody's time, go ahead and get started. So our second special guest here today, Laura, we had Dr. Sakaki on at the top of the 10 o'clock hour. And so, yes, you are our second VIP of the day to join us. Laura Lupe is going to be sharing with us some fun budget related updates. So I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Laura. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Laura, Rachel, and Sue are going to help me monitor the chat. So please feel free to chime in with questions as I go, and then we'll have some time for questions at the end too, especially because I usually do this briefing once in the fall and once in the spring, but we've sort of missed having me come the last couple of semesters. So we've done the fall forum and the last fall and the spring forum the spring before, but I haven't had a chance to be here. So I especially want to save time for questions today. So please feel free to hit me up with your questions. So I'm Laura Lupe. I am the Senior Director for University Budget and Planning, and I'm really glad to be here today. So like I said, every spring and fall, I come by with a budget briefing. In the spring, what we talk about is the planning for next fiscal year. So we are heavy into planning for next year, 21-22. So I'm just going to dive right into it. The good news is that we have received some federal funding to help us with our budget planning for 21-22. So last year we got this year, 2021, we got the CARES Act money. This time I think it's called SURSA or something like that. So all of those funds go into the HERF funds, the Higher Education Emergency Relief Fund. So I'm calling it HERF this time because it's a little easier to say than SURSA. These are still estimates so far. Everything in my presentation is subject to change because we are still in planning mode. So everything is preliminary and draft. But the numbers, the amounts we think we're going to get from the last round of federal stimulus, this is the funding that was approved on December 27th, 2020. We think we're going to get about $13.9 million in federal funding. This is for both institutional aid and student aid grants, and I'll talk a little bit more about how much is going to go to students on the next slide. And then we think we'll get about another $1 million of federal funding for being a minority serving institution. So the total there is about $14.9 million in aid to our institution and to our students. So the amount that we need to distribute to our students is decided by the Department of Education. And the minimum amount we need to distribute is the same amount that we distributed in CARES, which is about 4.5 million. So we have received access to these funds, and we have created a plan on how to provide students access to those funds. So those funds should be being distributed in the next several weeks to our students. So that's great news. There are a lot of guidelines about how we can use the rest of the funds. So that leaves just about $10 million of institutional aid funds basically that we can use for Sonoma State. And we can use them to defray lost revenue associated with the effects of the pandemic. And also, oops, sorry, getting distracted by the chat here. And reimbursement of expenses incurred after December 27th, faculty staff training, all things associated with the pandemic, costs for distance learning, those types of things. So we have to be really specific with how we spend that money because we have to report all of those costs to the Department of Education. And we're still awaiting additional guidelines. So like I said, those funds were just allocated December 27th. We had a turnover of administration at the federal government level, a new education secretary. So it's been a little slow getting guidelines out. But we should have all of that information finalized in the next few weeks and have more information about how we are planning to allocate that funding over the next year or so for our campus priorities and needs. So any question about the HERF funding, it is great news. It's good news for our students. It's good news for our institution. $1 trillion package that's on the table right now. There is additional funding for higher education. In that package, we don't yet know how much that might be, and that's still pending and in play. So more information on how that might be will be pending. So any questions about federal funding before I move on? Okay, great. So also what happened over the winter break was the governor released his January budget. So back in November every year, the Board of Trustees releases their request to the state for increased budget for the next year. This year, the Board of Trustees requested an increase of funding to the CSU of $556 million. Their main priorities were the restoration of the prior year cuts, or really this year's cuts, the 2021 cuts of $299 million, plus investment from the state in graduation initiative. So the original understanding with graduation initiative is that the CSU would get $75 million a year for 7 years. We did not get $75 million in 2021. And so they're asking for $75 million for 2021, $75 million for 21-22, total of $150 million. Then funding for mandatory costs and some base funding for academic facilities and infrastructure. So that was the opening request. No one expected that we would receive all of that money. Really, all of us were just hoping for a flat year with no budget cuts. So the governor released his budget in January. This is his opening budget based on the information he knew at the time. The good news is it is an increase to the CSU budget of $144.5 million. This represents a 3% increase to our state allocation budget, which overall is a 1.6% increase to the CSU budget. So we have more than one revenue source. We have the state allocation plus our tuition and fee revenue. So it's a 3% increase to our state allocation, but a 1.6% increase overall to our total CSU budget. So they provided some required allocation increases. For example, $15 million to graduation initiative priorities, $15 million to student mental health and technology needs. These have been big focuses for the governor. $2 million for common learning management systems. He wants the entire CSU to move to Canvas, so we're on the same system as the junior college. Sonoma State already is, so this would be supplemental dollars that we're already spending basically. And then about $111 million that's unallocated, which means we can sort of spend it however we determine. Well, that's nice, except we know we have all of these mandatory costs that we already have to pay for. So that's about $57 million. We have to pay for health benefits. We have to pay for those minimum wage increases. This is good. We didn't get any funding for that this year. So this is nice. So I'll take it. And then about $54 million, which is also good because we got that $299 million cut last year. So this should help fill that hole from the prior year. So if I was going to take a look at what this might mean for Sonoma State, we're about 2.3% of the entire CSU budget. So if I just multiply these lines times 2.3%, with the caveat that that is not how the CSU allocates funding, and that is not how we are going to receive our funding. And there is a lot of room for all of these numbers to change before the final budget. So again, everything is preliminary, that we might get $3.3 million of increased state allocation in our budget next year. And you can see the categories that those funds would be in. about $350,000 for GI 2025, another $350,000 for student mental health and technology, $1.3 million for mandatory cost increases, and about $1.3 million to help fill that deficit hole that we got from our cuts last year. So that's the January governor's budget, but we have a long way to go, like I said, before the final budget's passed. Hopefully we'll get some more information from the chancellor's office in April about how they would allocate those funds. We'll see if we get that information from them. We're pushing them for it. In May, the governor usually releases a revision of his budget, and that's because you all are starting to do your taxes. And so he'll know what the tax receipts are going to look like moving closer to that date. In June, the governor approves the legislature's budget. They're holding budget committee hearings right now. Governor Castro is going to those hearings, and he is lobbying for the CSU, especially for new GI 2025 money. That's really what the CSU is pushing, is to increase that $15 million line. And then we'll get our final budget allocated to us in July. So that's the rest of the spring timeline. There's a lot more that can happen between now and then. So any questions about the state budget timeline and the governor's budget before I move on to how that actually affects Sonoma's budget planning? Okay, great. So we are in a deficit planning phase here on campus. You all know that we had a deficit in 2021. We lost enrollment revenue and state allocation. Each division took a 12% budget reduction. A portion of it was in base and a portion of it was in one time. We solved most of our budget deficit for this current year, but only solved it partially in the base. So we started with a $20 million deficit in this year. We solved about $8 million in the base. So that means we're rolling forward $11.6 million of a base deficit to 21-22. So that's our starting point for next year. Now we have to make several more adjustments in the base. According to my current projections, our enrollment revenue is still going to fall a little bit next year. It's still a little early, so this number again will change. We haven't reached spring census. We're still trying to get more applications in. Elias, as the AVP of strategic enrollment, is working hard to close this gap. But right now I'm showing that we're going to lose a little bit more enrollment revenue next year. I've applied that $1.3 million of increased state allocation that's unallocated to reduce our deficit. And then our cost recovery revenue is going to go down a little bit next year too. We changed our methodology several years ago. This is part of a 5-year phase-in plan that revenue will go down. We also have increased costs that go up every year that are still currently unfunded. This is mainly retirement funding. Our retirement costs are going up consistently and aren't fully funded by the state. So those are costs that we have to pay for, and there is no source for them. So that will get added to the deficit. Our current base deficit right now, that brings it to $13.6 million. We have a little bit of a deficit that I'm projecting we haven't fully solved for this year of about 1.6. Again, these numbers will change as we get closer to year end. And then Cabinet is working on identifying some priorities for next year. So even though we're in a deficit, we also have to identify what's important to us. We still need to invest in certain priorities. And this is part of our strategic plan, right? So we need to invest in perhaps student mental health and wellness, especially as the effects of this pandemic are happening on our student body. We need to invest in student recruitment so that we can start turning those enrollment numbers around. We know we have to invest in cleaning as part of repopulating our grounds as we move back to more of a hybrid instruction mode. So those types of things don't have funding in the divisions. We'll need to add them here and identify funding for them. So our current deficit is about 15.1 million. Again, it's preliminary. We'll add those priorities. These numbers will shift as we move through the spring. We'll also probably apply some of those federal funds to this as well, which will help shrink the deficit. Okay, so any questions about our current year deficit and what's contributing to it and how we're going to move forward with that? This is all still in the planning phase. This is what Cabinet is working on right now. We have a meeting tomorrow morning to really take a hard look at this and their priorities. So as we move into this, what we really need to take a look at is the multi-year plan. Like I said, we'll probably apply a lot of the stimulus funds to the 21-22 deficit, buying us a 1-year reprieve. But looking at this 13.6 year base deficit, that base deficit moves with us year to year. Those stimulus funds are one-time funds, so they only help us for a single year. So we really need to look at the multi-year plan. We're seeing enrollment go down a little bit next year and then hopefully start to grow as the initiatives that strategic enrollment is putting together. So I've built into our multi-year plan a 5% growth of enrollment starting in 22-23 and 23-24, just slight upticks in enrollment. And as we start to see those initiatives take root, this can change. So that's the whole thing with multi-year plans, is you can start to build in other things. You can add more revenue, you can change them as changes start to take place. But for right now, I just have sort of conservative enrollment growth built in. But what I want to show you is that even with conservative enrollment growth built in, we have a multi-year budget deficit showing over time. So unfortunately, this graph is not the picture of a healthy organization, because the green line is our expenditures, the blue line is our revenues, and you never want your expenditures to outpace your revenues and be above them over time. So even as our enrollment starts to pick up and grow, there is a pretty significant gap between our expenditures and our revenues, and that's our deficit. So we need to start doing the work to close this gap, and that's going to require us to reduce our expenditures. So we're in the middle of planning for next year. We have to wait for that information from the Chancellor's office, from the governor, to finish up that planning. Meanwhile, I'm going to be sharing this information broadly so that all of campus knows what's going on. We're going to wait to hear from the federal government for additional funds. There's a lot more information that we're waiting for. And really, what we need to pay attention to is that we're going to get those stimulus funds, but they're only one-time funds. What we need to be focused on as a campus is that base deficit, and that we need to start working to solve that base deficit. The good news is we have about an 18-month timeline. We have the rest of this fiscal year, and we have 21-22 because we have those stimulus funds. No one expects to get stimulus funds past this next hopefully $1.9 trillion package. So what can we do? This seems daunting, but we have built a strategic budgeting framework on campus, and we're going to have to use those tools. And it's going to take everybody to do it. I can't solve it. I don't actually have any money. Everybody thinks that I have money, but I don't actually have any money. The money is in all of the units. And as Joyce will say, we can't do more with less. We have to do less with less. So that's what the picture of the iceberg is all about, is what I've talked to you about today is everything above the iceberg, but what we really need to start talking about as a campus is what's below the iceberg. We have to start looking at those resources and start shifting them to our priorities. So we have to take a look at what we're doing, what we can stop doing so that we can do less with less. Cabinet is already looking to see what our priorities are that we need to invest in, but then we have to look at what we can divest in, because we have to do less with less so that we can close that gap between our revenues and our expenditures. We can grow our revenue a little bit, but we also need to shrink our expenditures. And so shifting our resources to our priorities and our programs that elevate our identity, that meet our mission, and tie our resources to our strategic plan priorities and core values. This is a huge challenge. We have to reprioritize, take a comprehensive look at how we operate. We're going to have to be looking at program review, and we have a work task force, a cross-divisional task force on shared services. And we're going to have to look at strategic rehiring. So we've launched the EEP program. And so we're going to have to take a look at every vacancy and think about how we can rehire strategically and to better utilize the resources we have in order to close that gap. So as Laura said at the beginning, it's not always good news when I show up, but it's the truth and it's what we're working with. So I hope I saved enough time for questions. That's all I have for my presentation today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Laura. Does anyone have any other questions? I didn't see too much going on in the chat. A little bit of time.
Thank you, Audra.
Vito wants to know where the other Laura is. She's right there. Okay, well, thank you so much for your time, Laura. I know, as you were saying, things are preliminary, but I think it's always helpful for folks to see it along the way. And we always appreciate your transparency and how you're able to translate the multiple different pieces of information coming in and helping, us as a division understand the role we play in having a healthy organization. So
I really appreciate your time and attention. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. We appreciate you.
Thanks.
All right. Okay, so I think we can move back into our division updates. And I believe where we left off was, and the other Laura left, was with our student success and advising updates. So I'll turn it over to Jamie.
Perfect. Thank you, LMP. Vita, sorry, I'm not a Laura, I'm a Jamie, so not nearly as exciting, right? If you're wondering where I am, I've been demoted to the garage, everyone. And so I got an email from my daughter's teacher that I was too loud in these meetings. I think it was one of our one-on-ones, Doc, that I got that yell. So I'm now in the garage, but we're really excited about some of the things that we are bringing back and starting in student success and advising and wanted to share with y'all. The first one that we're bringing back are progress reports. And we beta tested these last academic year with a couple of our high DFW courses. And progress reports are our early warning system through Lobo Connect. And this is a way for our faculty and our professional academic advisors and student success and advising and CASE to partner and try to assist students early in the semester who are struggling. So last week, emails went out from Lobo Connect to individual faculty in these 5 classes listed, asking if students are not showing up or not logging in. And so we did run into some technical difficulty, but we did get 40% of our faculty to respond back, and they identified 5% of the students in their class as not logging in yet. So professional academic advisors are actively outreaching them this week to try to connect with them to help them figure out how to get into Canvas, how to use the different technologies, and so they don't fall too far behind. And then we're going to run this again next week, where we send out a second round of emails to our faculty, where we're going to talk again about attendance if students aren't logging in week 4, and if they're starting to have an assignment issue, so we can start to connect them with LARC, with tutoring, with MESA, anywhere that they might be able to get additional services. So we've seen nationwide lots of success around early warning systems, and so we're extremely excited to bring this back this semester and test it. Doc brought this news to Faculty Senate, Academic Senate last week, and brought up lots of conversation around faculty. So as we continue to work through this, we're going to test it to see how we can expand it. And then part of that, Derek Bradley is actually looking at using progress reports this semester for his probation students. So one of the issues that our advisors, and I know a lot of us have, is that our faculty don't put in midterm grades, and for a lot of times it's difficult for students to know how are they actually doing in class. And Canvas does have a fantastic grade book, but as Derek found out this past semester, it's not very accurate at times. And so he wants to be able to outreach his students who we know are at risk to be able to support them. So really excited with what the advisors are doing with progress reports. LMP, if we go to the next slide, the Career Center has also quietly launched something called Career Ready Verified. And this is an online career certificate program that we're helping to helping students to get and pick up those career competencies that we all know are so important, but also just some of the things that they would generally come into the Career Center and get support from. So how to get your LinkedIn set up, how to network, how to get your resumes. And so this is on Canvas. And what I'm really excited about, because it sounds cool to me, is they're looking to gamify it so students really get interested in utilizing it. So as they complete different modules, they'll get different types of badges, and then they'll be able to get a certificate when they're done. So when they're completed, we can say our students are career ready verified. And then perhaps one day we can get some of them to throw up some screenshots on Twitch or whatever the kids are using these days to show their game. And so really excited about this. We are beta testing this with a very, very small group of students this semester with the idea to expand it next semester, next academic year to all students at Sonoma State. So we are working with the less with less model, but with that still, we're still trying to get creative and ways that we can proactively support our students. So thank you, Career Center, Kelsey, Becky, for really putting a lot of time and effort into the development of this program. LMP, back to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jamie, for those updates. And we hope that we can continue to highlight some of these innovations and ways that folks are doing less with less and making good use of the technology that we have available to us. I welcome if folks have other things that they'd like to share at future division meetings to let me know. I think it's a great way to celebrate the work that folks are doing, but also to kind of spark maybe new ideas and creative innovations for us as a division. That concludes our updates for today. I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Sawyer for some closing remarks.
Well, first of all, thank you, Laura, for moderating and facilitating our program today. Again, I want to also to kind of step in on President Sakaki's remarks. The fact is that we all need each other, and I hope that you all will exercise that opportunity to check it in. And it has been, and it has been, and will continue to be a tad bit more stressful. We know that. But I do hope that you all will use and lean on one another in this time. It is interesting when I think that the other day we were talking about something in, I think it was a VP meeting, and someone said it was the other day, and it was like 3 weeks ago. I think we've all lost what time is. Time has a totally different meaning to us. And the things that you're oftentimes feeling, just the lack of sleep, that is amazing what kind of toll it can have. And all of us are eating differently. Some of us actually are eating well, and some of us are not eating so well. And some of us have noticed a little more of us than we had when we first started this. And yeah, I feel as though I decided to grow my beard back so I wouldn't have to see all the extra stuff there. But I hope that you all are at least taking care of yourselves, because in this time, I don't think any of us ever thought we would be sheltered in this period, and that we would be home and doing all these different things that we probably would do maybe on a weekend, but maybe not so much for almost 11 months. And so I hope that you all will look to each other for that help and for that care. And if nothing else, just for lending an ear to someone else who sometimes needs to hear from you. So you all, thank you for the wonderful work that you're doing. The work that we do in student affairs is quite stressful. We know that. What's really interesting about this, when we were talking about the Chronicle article, is that we've known this forever. The work that we do is stressful. Our CAPS psychologists need CAPS. I mean, the fact is that every time we put something out, we always have it italicized, and we'll say, you can always reach out to CAPS if you need help. And that's not just our campus, that's every campus. because we always lean on our CAPS folks. And so I say to CAPS, thank you all for everything that you've done. Thank you for being resilient. Thank you for hanging in there for us and always being there. But you also need to take that time for yourself. And I know that Dr. Williams and I have talked about that quite a bit. Just know that we love you, we care for you. And the fact is that we'll be there to do whatever we can do to support you. You're hearing now President Biden, I do like saying that President Biden is looking for those dollars to be able to help to support and make sure that we get that funding out to our schools. And as Laura said, it may not all be directed towards that, but we do have dollars, as well as the governor talked about mental health. We're talking about BNI. Those are issues that are obviously paramount to us on a college campus. We need to make sure that our undocumented students are taken care of and that they're not having to worry about this. We also need to make sure too that our veterans who have been out and sacrificing for us, that we can provide them the needed services they need to have on campus to be able to matriculate and graduate. And there's so many other groups that we know that need our assistance. But as we're looking at some of the issues around budget, and Laura did a phenomenal job of covering this, but we still are going to have to look at how do we reshape and right size our university and our division to get us through the next few years. And that's where we are right now. And so I thank you again for all the work that you do. I thank you for your commitment to our students. And I also say too, thank you for all of your kind words that you have said to each other that I have heard, and things that you've asked that we share with others. Because any story that you have, please let me know so I can share it with Cabinet. If you have a story or if you have something that we need to take to Academic Senate, please let me know, because those are the things that are absolutely necessary to continue on with the progression of the Division of Student Affairs. So you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you, Laura, again. Thank you, Rachel and Sue, for helping, as always, to put this together, and to thank you to each and every one of you for the great job you do in serving our students. So have a wonderful day.
Hi, everyone.
Bye, everyone.